Flirting with a 7-foot alien war goddess went wrong. Now I'm legally bound as her breeding partner. Elias Ward never planned to stand on an alien warship surrounded by 7-foot warriors with glowing armor. He never planned to make the biggest mistake of his life with one careless joke, and he never planned to become the center of an ancient Velshara law that could change the future of 2 species. But that is exactly where he was now. A single human engineer, trembling under the cold blue lights of the Velshara flagship, while 50 towering warriors stared at him like he was a new weapon or a new problem, or possibly both at the same time. Elias had only meant to break the tension during the peace meeting. The Velshara were huge, fast, and terrifying, and Earth's diplomats were shaking so badly that the translator devices kept glitching, so Elias, nervous and stupid, whispered a small joke under his breath while looking at their war leader. "Wow, she's tall. Kinda beautiful too," he muttered, trying to calm himself. The translator captured it, amplified it, and broadcast it across the entire chamber in perfect Velshara language. Every warrior froze, every human froze, and Commander Arvexa, the legendary war goddess of the Velshara, slowly turned to him. For humans, it was a harmless comment. For the Velshara, it was a formal declaration of courtship, a binding expression of desire, a statement that activated ancient tribal laws that had governed their people for thousands of years. Elias had no idea. Arvexa, however, understood exactly what it meant. She walked toward him with heavy steps that echoed like distant thunder. Her black armor shimmered with battle scars, her golden eyes fixed on him with a mixture of surprise and something far more intense. When she reached him, she placed her gauntleted hand on his shoulder, claiming him by law before an entire army. Elias almost fainted. The humans panicked, and the Velshara whispered in their deep voices, amazed that a small, soft human had dared to declare desire to their strongest commander. Within minutes, everything changed. Negotiations were postponed. Elias was escorted away, and Earth's delegation was told the ancient rituals must be completed. No exceptions, no delays, no mercy. Now he was walking through the dark metallic halls of the warship with 2 armored guards at his side. He tried to explain that it was a misunderstanding, but the translator failed to express things clearly. To the Velshara, his panic sounded like embarrassed excitement, which only made them respect him more. They believed he was shy, not terrified. They believed he was brave enough to choose Arvexa, but nervous about his new role. Elias felt like crying. Instead, he kept walking, because he did not have any other choice. The air smelled like metal and ozone. The floor vibrated gently as if the entire ship was alive. He passed groups of Velshara warriors who looked at him with curiosity, admiration, and sometimes hunger. Not physical hunger, but the hunger of warriors who saw a tiny human who had the courage to court their war goddess as something legendary. A younger warrior whispered, "He must be fearless." The other replied, "He must be insane." Elias agreed with the second one. The guards led him to a large circular chamber with glowing red walls. He had seen enough sci-fi movies to know that nothing good ever happened in rooms like this. A heavy door slid open, and Arvexa stood inside, waiting for him. She looked even more intimidating up close, 7 feet tall, muscles like sculpted steel, and eyes that glowed faintly with an inner fire that showed why she was called the war goddess. But there was something else. Something unexpected in her gaze. Curiosity, interest, even a strange gentleness hidden behind the armor. "Human Elias," she said in a deep voice, "you spoke the ancient words of desire, and by our law, you now stand as my chosen." Elias swallowed hard. He tried to speak, but his words came out in a shaking whisper. "It was a misunderstanding." The translator glitched. The words echoed in Velshara as, "I am overwhelmed by your presence." Arvexa nodded slowly, as if understanding completely. She thought he was simply shy and emotional, which made her even more certain he was a true mate. She stepped closer. Her massive shadow fell over him like a mountain. "You will face the trials," she said. "Show your worth, prove your courage, and you will take your place beside me." Elias wanted to scream. He wanted to run. He wanted to wake up from this nightmare. But the door sealed behind him with a heavy metallic thud. From somewhere deeper in the chamber, machinery roared to life. The red walls brightened, and a gate slowly opened. Inside was pure darkness. Something moved within it, growling like a giant beast waiting for him. Elias's knees shook. His heart hammered, and he whispered, "Oh no, what now?" Arvexa watched with great interest. To her people, fear was not weakness. It was the beginning of courage, and she wanted to see if the human truly had it. As the growling grew louder, Elias took a single step forward, even though every part of him wanted to run, and for the first time, the Velshara warriors watching from above murmured with respect. Just before he entered the darkness, a gentle, narrator-friendly message appears in the story. He hoped that anyone hearing this madness would stay with him till the end. And if they enjoyed stories like this, they should gently subscribe to the channel, so they never miss the next chapter. The ground shook. The beast roared. The trial began. The darkness swallowed Elias the moment the gate slammed shut behind him. The sound echoed through the chamber like a giant metal heartbeat, slow and heavy. For a moment, he stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe, listening to the growl somewhere ahead of him. The air was thick and warm, almost humid, like he had stepped into the mouth of a giant creature. The floor beneath him felt like metal, scratched and dented, as if other challengers before him had desperately clawed at it. He did not want to think about what had happened to them. Elias lifted his hand and his fingers trembled as he touched the small wristband translator. The dim blue light on it flickered, barely giving him a sense of direction. He whispered to himself, trying to stay calm. Okay, Elias. You just need to survive. No pressure. Only a deadly alien beast waiting to eat you. Another growl came, louder this time, rolling through the chamber like thunder. Elias nearly jumped out of his skin. His breathing quickened, and he forced himself to take slow steps forward. He could not turn back even if he wanted to. The gate behind him had sealed completely. Above him, through hidden observation windows, Velshara warriors watched from the upper balconies. They spoke in deep voices, curious, amused, skeptical. Small, one said. Soft, another added. But brave to walk forward, another murmured. To them, courage was not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite fear. Commander Arvexa stood among them, her golden eyes never leaving Elias. Her expression stayed unreadable, but her heart beat a little faster. She searched for weakness, for strength, for signs of why this strange human might be worth the ancient laws that now bound them. Elias continued walking forward, trying to ignore the shaking of his legs. He reached a circular area where the translator light suddenly bright. Enid, revealing a faint shape in the corner, his heart dropped. Two glowing blue eyes stared back at him from the darkness. The creature stepped forward, its claws scraping against the metal floor with sharp screeching sounds. It looked like a massive armored panther, but with bone spikes running down its spine and twin fangs that shimmered like crystal blades. Its growl shook Elias's ribs. He took a step back, nearly tripping. No. That thing is not friendly, he whispered. The translator, still malfunctioning, repeated it in Velshara as, "Show me your true test." The beast roared in response and charged. Elias threw himself to the side, sliding across the metal floor and scraping his elbow painfully. The beast slammed into the wall where he had stood seconds earlier, shaking the entire chamber. He scrambled to his feet and ran, his heart pounding like a drum. He had no weapon, no armor, no plan, only fear and adrenaline. Velshara warriors above murmured with interest. He moves quickly for a soft being, a prey that refuses to fall. Arvexa's eyes narrowed, observing every step he took. The beast turned around, its crystalline fangs glowing brighter as it prepared to pounce again. Elias looked around frantically for anything he could use. His eyes landed on several metal rods scattered across the floor, broken from previous trials. He sprinted to them and picked up the longest one, almost as tall as himself. It felt heavy, but it was better than nothing. The beast charged again, faster this time. Elias planted his feet, holding the rod in both hands. Just before the beast reached him, he dropped to one knee and jabbed the rod upward with all his strength. The rod hit the creature under its jaw, not enough to injure it, but enough to surprise it. The beast jerked its head back with a frustrated roar, giving Elias a few precious seconds. He stumbled always, breathing hard. Sweat dripped down his forehead, stinging his eyes. Okay, so that didn't kill it. Great, he muttered. Above him, a few Velshara warriors laughed in approval. Clever, one said. Resourceful, another added. The beast circled him now, slower, studying him. It lowered its body like a predator preparing for the final strike. Elias felt the ground vibrating with each step it took. His heart pounded fast, but his mind started to think sharper now. Fear gave him energy, but desperation gave him ideas. He noticed something on the creature's body. The bone spikes were flexible, almost like antennae. When it growled, the spikes glowed and vibrated. "That's how it senses me. Sound. Vibrations," he whispered, which meant maybe he could use the environment to trick it. He looked at the metal rods again, scattered everywhere. A plan formed. Small, ridiculous, but worth trying. Elias grabbed 2 rods and hurled them in opposite directions with all his strength. They clattered loudly across the chamber, making the beast whip its head toward the noise. Then Elias crouched low and moved silently along the opposite side. The creature pounced toward the loudest sound. Smashing into the far wall, confused, Arvexa's eyes widened above. The human was not strong, but he was thinking like a true survivor. Elias ran to a control pillar glowing faintly at the edge of the room. He pressed random symbols, praying one would help him. The pillar hummed. A sudden burst of bright light filled the room, blinding the beast. It roared in pain, staggering backward. Elias didn't wait. He grabbed a heavy rod and used all his force to strike the creature's sensory spikes. The beast collapsed with a final groan, not dead, but defeated. Silence filled the chamber. Then the upper balconies erupted with deep Velshara cheers. Arvexa stepped forward, her expression finally shifting, a hint of respect appearing in her golden eyes. "This human, he adapts," she murmured. "He survives." The gate reopened and Elias stumbled out, exhausted, injured, shaking. "Boy." And alive, Velshara warriors bowed their heads slightly as he passed, an honor he never expected. Arvexa approached him, towering over him like a shadow of steel and fire. "You have passed phase 1, she said. "But now, you face me." Elias froze. His heart stopped for a second. He looked up slowly at the 7-foot war goddess standing only inches away, her expression unreadable. "Phase 2 begins," Arvexa said. "In the next chamber, you will face your chosen mate." The doors slid open behind her, revealing a second arena glowing with blue fire. Elias swallowed hard as he realized the truth. The next trial was not a beast. It was her, the war goddess herself. Cliffhanger. Elias steps toward the chamber where Arvexa waits to test him personally, his fate hanging between life, death, and a bond he never meant to claim. Elias took a deep breath as he stepped into the next chamber. The walls glowed faint blue, shimmering like liquid metal. The floor vibrated under his feet. But this time it was not the beast that moved beneath him. It was the presence of Arvexa herself, the war goddess of the Velshara, and every instinct in his body screamed that nothing in his life had prepared him for this. Arvexa stood at the center of the chamber, her towering figure framed by the blue fire. Every movement she made seemed deliberate, like a predator circling its prey. But her eyes were fixed on him with curiosity, not hate, not anger, but a strange, almost dangerous interest. Elias felt like she could see every thought in his mind, even the ones he tried to hide from himself. He swallowed hard, trying to steady his shaking hands. I'm ready," he said, voice trembling. The translator captured it perfectly in Velshara. "Do not lie," she said softly, her voice low and melodic, yet carrying the weight of 100 battles. "Truth is survival." Elias nodded, unsure how to respond. Every word he could say seemed wrong. Every movement seemed awkward, but he forced himself to take a step forward, and that small act caught her attention. She tilted her head slightly, golden eyes narrowing. "The human moves with awareness," she whispered to herself. "Interesting." She circled him slowly, each step deliberate, each movement radiating power. Elias could feel the air shift around her, like gravity itself bent toward her presence. He swallowed another time. "Why me?" he whispered, unsure if he dared to speak. The translator repeated it in Velshara. "Why choose me for this bond?" Arvexa stopped in front of him, towering over him by more than a head. "You spoke the words," she said, "and in our law, words are not empty." Her hand rested lightly on the hilt of a blade strapped to her waist, threatening, but a reminder that she could end him if he tried to flee. Elias shook his head. I didn't mean it. It was a joke, a mistake, he said. His voice cracked. The translator relayed it, but Arvexa only raised an eyebrow. Humans hide emotion with words, she said. But the heart does not lie. She extended her hand, palm open. Step forward and prove your intent, she said. Elias hesitated. Each instinct screamed to run, to escape, but the moment felt heavier than gravity itself. He stepped forward, slow, deliberate, and the floor beneath them hummed as if sensing his choice. Arvexa studied him for what felt like hours, her eyes tracing every movement, every reaction, every pulse of fear and courage. She spoke finally, her voice like a bell ringing through the chamber. Many have stood before me and claimed innocence. Many have tried to trick me or speak lies. Few survive the first trial, fewer survive the second. Elias felt sweat drip down his neck. The chamber suddenly felt smaller, her presence enormous, overwhelming, but he could not turn back. Not now, not after the trials had already begun. She motioned for him to follow her. The floor shifted, revealing platforms floating over a pit filled with glowing blue energy. The next phase tests the mind and heart, she said. You will answer 3 questions. Your survival depends not on your body, but on your choices. Elias nodded. The first question came. What do you value most? Elias hesitated, unsure. Was she testing honesty, courage, or strategy? Finally, he answered. My life, he said simply. The translator repeated it. Arvexa's lips curved slightly, a faint smile, almost human. Second question, she said, voice steady. What would you sacrifice for survival? Elias thought of Earth, of his family, of everything he had ever known. He said, everything except honor. The translator conveyed it, and the war goddess tilted her head. She was studying him, weighing the truth behind his words. The third question came, and it made Elias freeze. What would you give me if you could? His heart skipped. Every instinct in his body screamed, answer incorrectly, and you die. Answer honestly, and... What? He swallowed hard. I don't know, he whispered. The translator repeated it, and Arvexa's expression darkened. Your uncertainty is expected, she said. But hesitation must be overcome. She extended her hand again. Step forward willingly, she said, or be cast from the trial forever, unworthy. Elias took a deep breath, feeling the full weight of the law, the culture, the galaxy itself pressing due on him. He stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. The air hummed, the blue fire flared. Arvexa reached out, her hand brushing his. It was not cruel, but it was binding. Every nerve in his body screamed with tension. Human, she said softly, you have passed the mental phase. But the emotional phase, the heart, is still untested. Her golden eyes bored into his, and Elias realized that this trial was not about survival. It was about connection, trust, and courage. And for the first time he understood the truth of the Velshara law. It was not cruelty that bound them. It was the expectation that only the worthy could survive both body and heart. A sudden alarm rang through the chamber. The floating platform shifted. Blue energy pulsed beneath their feet. Arvexa moved aside, signaling him to continue. He stepped forward, unsure but compelled, every step echoing in the massive chamber, every step bringing him closer to something terrifying, and something strangely human. Cliffhanger. Elias realizes that passing the trials is only the beginning, and the next challenge will test not just his courage but his deepest fears, as Arvexa's true intentions remain hidden. The chamber doors slammed shut behind Elias, and a silence heavier than steel filled the air. Arvexa's golden eyes remained locked on him, but something changed in the atmosphere. A subtle tension, almost electric, began to weave itself around them. Elias sensed it instantly. This was no ordinary phase of the trials. Something dangerous, personal, and utterly unpredictable was about to happen. From the shadows, a deep, cold voice rang out. Commander Arvexa, your claim is dishonored. The words made Elias freeze. He turned slowly and saw a massive Velshara stepping into the light. The newcomer was taller than most of the other warriors, his armor blackened with battle marks, eyes glowing with a fierce red light. Every movement radiated raw power and deadly intent. This was General Cora, one of the fiercest fighters in the Velshara Empire, and he did not approve of Elias. Who is he? Elias whispered, stepping back slightly. The translator repeated his words, but General Cora did not answer. Instead, he circled the room, muscles coiled like a predator ready to strike. Arvexa remained calm, unflinching, her eyes never leaving Elias. But Elias could feel her tension, the weight of her authority straining against Cora's presence. The two of them were like twin storms about to collide, and he was trapped in the middle. Cora stopped in front of Elias, towering over him. "You call yourself a mate-worthy human?" he said. His voice was a growl that made the metal floor vibrate. "You are weak, small, unworthy." Elias's knees shook, but he forced himself to stand taller. He had survived the first two phases of the trials. He could not back down now, even if every instinct screamed at him to run. Arvexa stepped forward, placing herself between Elias and Cora. "You will not touch him," she said. Her voice was calm but full of steel. Cora laughed, a sound that shook the chamber. "The law allows me to challenge any claim," he said. By right, he could be reassigned to produce hybrids for the military breeding labs. Elias's heart stopped. He had no idea what that meant exactly, but he knew it could not be good. The thought of being trapped forever in a brutal alien system made his stomach churn. And worse, he realized that by existing here, he had already started a political war he did not understand. Arvexa's expression hardened. She extended her gauntleted hand, her armor gleaming in the flickering blue light. "You will face me in combat if you wish to challenge this claim," she said. Her words were calm, but every Velshara in the chamber understood the unspoken meaning. Cora grinned, showing his sharp fangs. "This will be amusing," he said. "And when I win, your human will be mine." Elias's mind raced. He had no weapons, no armor, no experience in battle. The only thing he had was courage. And that alone might not be enough. The floor beneath them shifted suddenly, forming a wide arena surrounded by high walls. Blue energy crackled around the edges. He realized instantly that this would be a fight to the death, or worse, a public execution of failure. Cora lunged first, faster than Elias could comprehend. Arvexa met him mid-air, blades clashing in a shower of sparks that lit the chamber. Elias stumbled backward, watching the two greatest warriors he had ever seen fight in a whirlwind of speed, strength, and deadly skill. He could barely focus on their movements as walls shook and the floor trembled. The sheer force of their clash made him question whether he could survive standing in the same room. But he had to survive. He had to be worthy. And he had to find some way to show his courage, even if he had no strength. The Velshara warriors around the arena cheered and shouted, each blow from Arvexa and Cora echoing like thunder. Elias noticed tiny details in the fight, the way Arvexa's muscles flexed before a strike, the way Cora's eyes tracked every movement of hers. Every second was a lesson, a puzzle he could try to solve with nothing but observation. Suddenly, Cora slashed toward Elias, testing him directly. The human barely dodged, rolling across the metal floor. He stumbled to his feet, heart hammering, sweat blinding his eyes. "This is insane," he muttered. The translator repeated it in Velshara, and Cora laughed cruelly. "You move like a scared prey," he said. "Pathetic." Elias looked around frantically, searching for anything to use. Then he remembered the floating energy platforms from the previous trial. If he could reach one, maybe he could gain leverage, maybe even survive long enough to prove his courage. He ran, slipping and sliding across the slick metal, dodging Cora's blade as sparks flew dangerously close. Arvexa's eyes never left him. She was judging him, measuring him, seeing if he had the heart of a survivor. He jumped onto one of the platforms just as Cora lunged. The energy pulse beneath him vibrated and hummed. The platform tilted dangerously, and Elias barely held on. Below him, the blue energy crackled, threatening to swallow him if he fell. The chamber seemed to shrink as he clung to the platform, and Arvexa shouted instructions that he barely understood. "Trust yourself. Observe. React." Elias's mind raced. He remembered every small trick he had used to survive the first trial. He used his wits, his speed, and observation to outmaneuver Cora. Each dodge, each leap, each risk seemed to earn Arvexa's respect. Even Cora paused for a moment, recognizing the human's unusual row. Esilience. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, Arvexa struck a final blow, sending Cora sprawling across the arena. The general roared in frustration. His armor dented, his pride shattered. Arvexa stood tall, her chest heaving, her eyes blazing with victory. She looked down at Elias, who was shaking but alive. "You have passed this challenge because you observed, adapted, and endured," she said. "You may lack strength, but you are alive because your courage is real." Elias sank to his knees, exhausted, barely able to speak. Arvexa reached down and touched his shoulder lightly, not cruel, not possessive, but acknowledging him, recognizing his worth in her terms. "Now," she said, voice low and commanding, "the final bonding ritual approaches, human. You will choose. Your courage will be tested again, but this time, the heart will speak." Cliffhanger. Elias realizes that the trials are far from over, and the next phase will challenge not just his survival instincts, but his deepest emotions, as the Velshara law and Arvexa's intentions converge in a dangerous personal test. The chamber fell silent after Cora's defeat. Elias's chest heaved, sweat dripping into his eyes. Every muscle ached, every nerve screamed in protest, and yet he could not rest, not fully, not while the next challenge waited. Arvexa's golden eyes watched him like molten fire, silent, calculating, waiting for him to prove more than just courage. "Human," she said finally, her voice low and commanding. "You survived the trials of body and mind, but the heart has yet to speak." Elias swallowed hard. What does that mean?" he asked, voice cracking. The translator repeated his words in Velshara. Arvexa tilted her head, studying him like he was a puzzle she needed to solve. "The heart will choose whether you belong beside me," she said, "and not your fear, not your cleverness, will decide." Elias's stomach tightened. The weight of her words settled on him like iron. He realized for the first time that this was not a test of survival. It was a test of loyalty, trust, and understanding. And he was still painfully human, small, fragile, and unsure. Even as the throne chamber above awaited the final ritual, the Velshara Council's eyes burned with judgment from every shadowed corner, and the political threads of the galaxy threatened to snap with every heartbeat. Then came the message, delivered through the translator and Arvexa's voice together. "Earth has offered extraction. Leave now and abandon this trial." Elias froze. He could run, go back to the familiar, go back to life as he knew it, escape the rituals, the laws, the pressure of a 7-foot war goddess and an alien empire, his family, his home, even the soft warmth of his bed awaited him. All of it was within reach, but something in him refused. He thought of Arvexa, standing alone on the battlefield of her own people, fighting warriors stronger than him, fighting laws older than any human memory, and he realized she had done something remarkable. She had made him feel seen, not as a human, not as prey, but as someone capable of choices, even in fear. Elias took a step forward, ignoring the trembling of his legs. He looked at Arvexa, standing silently, her armor glinting in the strange blue light. I stay," he said, voice barely audible. The translator repeated it perfectly. A murmur ran through the chamber as the Velshara warriors absorbed his choice. He could feel their judgment, their surprise, and even a hint of admiration. Choosing her meant risking his life, his freedom, and everything he had known. Yet he chose loyalty over escape, humanity over self-preservation. Arvexa stepped closer, closer than she had ever been. "Then the bond will proceed," she said. Her hand reached toward him, not to strike, but to guide, to signal the start of the next phase. Elias's heart pounded. He felt trapped between awe and terror, respect and fear. Suddenly, alarms blared, red light flashing across the chamber. The council's message came through, cold and metallic. "General Cora will not rest. He will return with support." Elias's stomach sank. Even after the duel, Cora's challenge was far from over. The bond he was about to form would be tested. Not just by alien law, but by the fury of a rival who sought to destroy everything he now represented. Arvexa's hand rested lightly on his shoulder, grounding him. "You survived this challenge," she said softly, "and you survived the next." Elias's mind raced. Questions he could not answer swirled in his head. Could he truly belong beside her? Could a human survive an alien bond designed for strength, power, and centuries of tradition? And could he protect the one who had claimed him, even if it meant facing a war that could consume them both? The doors of the chamber slid open to reveal the throne arena, a massive circular platform floating above a pit of glowing blue energy. The Velshara Council sat in shadowed seats, their eyes unblinking, watching every move with centuries of wisdom and scrutiny. Elias's heart pounded as he stepped onto the platform. Arvexa following him, her every step echoing like a war drum. The wind of the chamber seemed to shift, pulling at his clothes and hair. And in that moment, he understood fully that this was not just a trial, it was a test of heart, courage, and loyalty to someone who could destroy him with a single thought. The council began to chant, a low hum vibrating through the metal floor, ancient Velshara words that Elias could not understand, but the meaning was clear. The trial was almost complete, and the final choice would be made, not by strength, not by wit, but by connection, trust, and mutual recognition. Elias looked at Arvexa, noticing the subtle shift in her stance. Her golden eyes softened slightly, her massive shoulders relaxed just a fraction, and in that moment, he realized that she had never expected a human to survive this far, or to make a choice that reflected courage and loyalty instead of fear. He realized that the trials were as much about her understanding of him as his understanding of her, and that the galaxy itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next move. Then, without warning, the chamber walls began to shift, energy streams forming into barriers and obstacles. Velshara warriors above murmuring with excitement and anticipation. Elias knew immediately. The final phase of the trials had begun, and he would have to prove not only that he could survive, but that he could protect, understand, and stand beside a being whose power dwarfed his own, a being who could crush him with a single gesture, a being who already expected his heart, and perhaps hoped for his loyalty. Cliffhanger. As the obstacles rise and the arena glows with deadly energy, Elias realizes the true test has only begun. He must navigate the challenges, protect Arvexa, and confront the galaxy's expectations all at once, as rival forces and his own fears converge in a battle of heart and courage. The throne. Arena glowed brighter than Elias had ever seen. Blue energy pulsed beneath the floating platforms, casting long shadows across the metal floor. Every step he took made the ground vibrate, and the air hummed with the silent anticipation of the Velshara Council. Elias felt trapped between awe and terror, between duty and instinct, between fear and the strange pull of loyalty he felt toward Arvexa. Arvexa's massive silhouette stood beside him, her golden eyes scanning the chamber, every muscle tensed, her fingers brushing against the hilt of her blade as if ready to defend him without a word. Elias could feel the warmth of her presence despite her towering, imposing form, and he realized something that made his heart twist. She trusted him, even when everything else in this galaxy screamed that he was weak, small, and human. Suddenly, a sharp alarm blared through the chamber, red lights flashed across the walls, a loud voice boomed through the translator. "Human Elias Ward, Earth extraction team in orbit. You are ordered to evacuate immediately." Elias froze, heart hammering. Escape was suddenly within reach, a way back to everything familiar. To family, to comfort, to life. He could leave this alien madness behind. But Arvexa's golden eyes locked on him, unyielding. "You would abandon the trials?" she asked softly, but the weight of her words crushed the air. Elias shook his head. He wanted to run. He wanted to go home. But the truth was clear. He could not leave. Not while she stood beside him. Not while the bond he never asked for hung between them like an invisible chain. Not while the Velshara Empire watched silently, waiting to judge every choice he made. The extraction team materialized on the observation deck above, their human faces staring down at him through thick glass. They waved, shouted, begged, "Elias, get out, now." Their voices head him through the translator, clear and urgent, but every fiber of his being hesitated. Could he betray Arvexa? Could he abandon someone who had claimed him, someone who had shown him respect, someone who had risked her empire to protect him? Above, Arvexa stepped closer, her towering form casting a shadow over him. "You choose to stay?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but impossible to ignore. The subtle tension in her posture told him that the next moments would decide more than just his life. They would decide the fate of their bond, the future of two species, and perhaps the balance of the galaxy. Elias swallowed hard, every instinct screaming. He looked at the energy crackling beneath their feet, at the floating platforms shifting unpredictably, at the Velshara Council, their faces unreadable, and at Arvexa, whose presence was both terrifying and strangely comforting. He made his choice, slow and deliberate. "I stay," he whispered. The translator repeated it flawlessly. A hush fell over the chamber. Even the energy beneath their feet seemed to pause, waiting, as if acknowledging his decision. Arvexa's eyes softened just slightly, not completely, but enough for Elias to see her approval. "You are human, yet courageous," she said. "Your heart, your loyalty. It is unusual." Elias wanted to smile, but his nerves made his lips stiff. The bond he was entering was not about romance or choice in the human sense. It was law, culture, and survival intertwined. And yet, in that moment, he felt a strange connection. One he could not explain. One that made the fear in his chest coexist with something like trust. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the chamber. The doors at the far end burst open. Korra's forces poured in, black-armored warriors moving like shadows. Their intent was clear. Take Elias, disrupt the trials, seize the human at any cost. Elias froze. He was human, fragile and unarmed, and yet he had to act. He could not let Arvexa fight them alone. He could not betray the trust she had shown him. Arvexa stepped forward without hesitation, her massive blade flashing with energy as she met the first wave of attackers. Elias's instincts screamed at him to stay out of the fight, but his body moved before his mind could catch up. He grabbed a fallen metal rod from the floor and swung, just enough to distract, just enough to survive, and the Velshara warriors around him moved in astonishment. The human, small and weak, was somehow holding his own. Not through strength, but through courage, determination, and quick thinking. The arena shifted, platforms tilting and spinning with lethal precision. Elias jumped, slid, and dodged, barely keeping pace with Arvexa. The attackers were relentless, but something inside him had changed. He no longer felt like prey. He felt like someone who could make choices, fight for survival, and stand beside a being who could destroy him instantly. Finally, after a tense and chaotic struggle, Arvexa struck the last warrior down. The chamber fell silent again. Elias fell to his knees, exhausted. Her hand reached down, helping him to his feet. "You survived," she said softly. "Not only the trials, but yourself." Elias could barely comprehend the weight of her words. He realized that staying had been the only choice that made sense. Not because he was brave, but because he had found something in her that called to his humanity, a connection neither of them could deny. Above, the council whispered among themselves. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath, and Elias understood fully that his choice, to stay, to face Arvexa, to risk everything, had changed the course of more than just his life. Cliffhanger. As Earth's forces pull back reluctantly and Korra retreats to plot revenge, Elias faces the final moment of truth, the ultimate bond ritual with Arvexa that will seal his fate, testing loyalty, heart, and courage beyond anything he has ever imagined. The throne arena was silent. The blue energy under the floating platforms pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Elias's body ached from exhaustion, sweat stinging his eyes. His muscles screamed, and every instinct told him to run, but he could not. Not now. Not after everything. Not after the trials had already pushed him to the edge of fear, courage, and loyalty. Arvexa stood before him, massive and radiant, her golden eyes locking onto his with a weight that made his chest tighten. Everything about her screamed power, authority, and danger. And yet, beneath the armor, beneath the glowing eyes, Elias sensed something else, something human, or at least something he could relate to, a quiet expectation, a challenge, and an invitation all at once. "Elias Ward," Arvexa said softly, voice echoing in the chamber. "The trials are complete, the beasts defeated, the rival conquered, and the arena survived." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "But the final choice lies with you." Elias felt the words hit him like a thunderclap. He had fought, observed, survived. But now, the fate of the bond, his life, and perhaps the galaxy, rested entirely on a single decision. He swallowed hard, every thought racing. If he chose loyalty to her, he would remain in this alien empire, bound by laws older than Earth itself, subject to customs he could barely understand. A human among beings who could crush him effortlessly. And yet, if he chose to flee, Earth would welcome him back with open arms. Comfort, safety, and life as he knew it, waiting just beyond the stars. He looked at Arvexa, her massive form still standing with calm authority. Her eyes softened slightly, not weak, not vulnerable, but open, waiting, trusting, and daring him to make the right choice. And in that moment, Elias realized that this was not about fear, or power, or survival. It was about loyalty, courage, and understanding something greater than himself. A distant hum signaled the start of the final ritual. The Velshara Council's voices rose in low chants, ancient words that vibrated through the arena. The platforms beneath them shifted subtly, blue energy swirling and rising like a tide. Elias felt a pull, almost magnetic, drawing him closer to Arvexa, closer to the bond that would define his life. The choice was clear: stay and embrace the trials fully, or leave and return to Earth forever. His mind screamed with doubts, but his heart, strange, terrified, and courageous, knew the answer. He reached out, slowly trembling, and placed his hand against hers. The energy in the chamber pulsed violently, as if the universe itself had exhaled. Arvexa's massive fingers closed around his hand. The touch was firm, grounding, and terrifyingly intimate. Golden eyes locked on his, searching, testing, understanding. "You choose," she whispered, "and your heart will be bound to mine, by law, by trust, and by survival." Elias's throat tightened. He nodded slowly. "Yes," he whispered, voice barely audible. "Yes, I stay." The translator repeated the words flawlessly, and the chamber seemed to vibrate with the weight of the decision. Blue energy surged around them, lifting the floating platform slightly higher. The arena trembled as ancient rituals awoke, symbols of bonding and law glowing across the walls. Elias felt the pull of power, fear, and awe, but he also felt something else, a connection he had never known. Not romantic, not simple, but profound, binding him to a being who could have destroyed him in a single moment, and yet had chosen instead to trust him. Arvexa's voice softened further. "Human, your courage is unmatched, your loyalty rare, your heart remarkable." The energy around them pulsed. The bond sealed itself in silence and fire. The Velshara Council murmured in approval, their eyes no longer just judging, but acknowledging. A human had passed their most impossible trials and had chosen to remain, to stand beside the war goddess, to face an alien empire as both a survivor and a partner. Elias felt his body weaken, exhaustion finally overtaking him. But Arvexa's presence steadied him, her grip firm, unyielding. And in that moment, fear and doubt melted, replaced by a strange calm, the knowledge that whatever came next, he would face it not alone, but with someone who respected him, trusted him, and demanded his courage. Above, Korra's forces had retreated. Earth's extraction team watched silently, and the galaxy itself seemed to pause, waiting for the consequences of a human who had dared to speak, and then choose, and survive, and claim his sheaves. Placed beside a 7-foot war goddess, Elias finally exhaled, the weight of the trials lifting slightly, and for the first time, he allowed himself a small, shaky smile. He had survived the impossible. He had proven his worth, and he had made a choice that would echo across worlds, not because he was strongest, or fastest, or cleverest, but because he had dared to face fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, and had chosen courage and loyalty over safety and comfort. Arvexa stepped closer, her presence a mountain of power and authority, and yet she lowered her head slightly, a subtle gesture of acknowledgement, of recognition, of respect. And in that instant, Elias knew that whatever the galaxy decided, whatever battles might come next, he had already passed the most important test of all, the test of heart, courage, and choice. Cliffhanger, ending. As the bond ritual completes, Elias stands beside Arvexa, a human who defied fear, survived ancient alien trials, and chose loyalty and courage over safety, marking the beginning of a legend that will echo across the stars.